These are the new metal releases for June 28th, 2024. I have 7 bands coming from diverse backgrounds, including some old school death metal, a veteran heavy metal band, and some more melodic rock and heavy metal. I will give a short review of all these albums, and at the end of each mini review, I'll give my score. This way you can learn about some of the new metal albums this week and see which ones are worth checking out. First album I have is from the band Nothing More. The name of the album is Carnal. This was my first time listening to this band. As of yesterday, I was not really familiar with this band, but they were recommended to me by one of my subscribers. His name is Dylan. And they're an alternative rock band from Texas. They've been around since the mid-2000s. I need to re-listen to some of their popular songs just to see if I know them. But they have one song with David Draiman of Disturbed. I'll get to that in a minute. The album has a lot of short interlude tracks that are just over a minute that have spoken word parts along with the music. They're not too bad. They serve as introductions to the songs. The opening track is called House on Sand. It's a heavy song with lots of metalcore style guitar riffs. The vocals are very melodic with some heavy vocals, as well as there's lots of heaviness in the breakdown. Angel Song is the one with David Draiman. He sings one verse in the song. I thought it was good, but I probably would have preferred to hear more of David Draiman. I really like his vocals, but then some of the songs are very commercial sounding, such as Free Fall. I like the commercial ones the least, but I also thought the song Free Fall had some cool grunge style guitar riffs. Then there was another song called Blame It on the Drugs, which had kind of a pop punk type of sound, something with that guitar rhythm. It was catchy. Then another song, Existential Dread, a mix of heavy guitar riffs and melodic vocals. There's a song called Stuck that was one of the heavier songs on the album with a mix of clean and harsh vocals. And the song has guest vocals by someone named Sinister, who I'm not really familiar with. Overall, it's not too bad. Some songs are very modern pop sounding, but there was enough heavy stuff and guitar riffs for me to enjoy this. It's a 7.5 out of 10 for me. Let me know if you're a fan of this band, and how does this album compare to the rest of their discography. Next album I have is Neaera with All Is Dust. They're a German metal band. They started playing melodic death metal. Now they're moving towards metalcore sound, but they've been active since 2004. It's their 8th album. There are 5 members in the band, 2 guitar players. The new album was released on Metal Blade Records. So basically we're going to see if this new sound is better or worse. So the album has 10 songs. It's 47 minutes long. The opening song is Antidote to Faith. This one has some hard-driving guitar rhythm, some very aggressive and dark-sounding vocals, but there's also some melody in the song. This one has still somewhat of a melodic death metal sound, but there are other some death metal style guitar riffs and blast beats used. Next song has some machine gun guitar riffs, as well as some melodic death metal style leads. They have some songs where they slow it down, such as the song Swords Unsheathed. This has some of those black metal inspired tremolo picked guitar riffs, as well as harsh vocals. Some of the riffs also sounded a little like thrash metal as well. Other songs get really heavy, such as the song Edifier with some fast rhythms and guitar riffs. I thought this one had more of that metalcore sound, as opposed to some of the other songs on the album. There was an atmospheric song called In Vain that had some clean guitars in the intro, and it gave the song a very spacey and haunting feel. I thought this one had more of an emotional sound. But don't get me wrong, the song was still pretty heavy with some harsh vocals and cool guitar riffs. The album ends with a song called Into the Hollow, which was one of the heaviest songs on the album with brutal riffs and blast beats. This was more of a metalcore sounding song. Overall, I like this more than I thought I would. My score is an 8 out of 10. Let me know if you have listened to this band or listened to their other albums, and how do they compare with this album here. The next album I have is 200 Stab Wounds with Manual Manic Procedures. They are a death metal band from Cleveland, Ohio. They've been getting a lot of buzz in the metal community. It's their second album. I remember the first album that was released back in 2021. They play old school death metal, but there's also this classic horror movie aspect of the band, and I think that makes them stand out amongst all the other death metal bands that release albums every week. The album has 9 songs. It's only 29 minutes long. The opening track sounds like the intro to a horror movie from the 70s, like one of those grindhouse horror movies with the synth in the background. This was how the first song, Hands of Eternity, started out, but after a minute or so, it turns into an old school death metal song with the classic sounding guitar riffs. The vocals came into the song about after 2 minutes or so, and they sounded like some typical death metal vocals, maybe similar to Cannibal Corpse, and there was also some melody in the guitar playing as well, in addition to blast beats. You also get some cool galloping guitar riffs as well as a thick bass guitar sound. Then there was a song that was called Manual Manic Procedures, or the title track. It had a different sound with some heavy bass, some thrash metal style guitar riffs. This one also had an old school death metal sound as well. There's some slower stuff, such as the song Release the Stench, which has some melodic leads, thick and heavy guitar riffs, but also has some faster sections as well, so they're not really going death doom. It's just part of the song. And the next song, Led to the Chamber / Liquefied. First part of the song sounds like some of that old horror movie music where the opening credit scene has those creepy sounds, the dark piano playing, and it goes into the next song, Liquefied, that slowly builds up as it transitions from one song to the next. It's an instrumental, but more of a traditional sounding instrumental. I'm talking about the second half, but lots of dark sounds. Then some of the other songs like Flesh from Within and Defiled Gestation had some clean guitars and heavy bass guitars mixed in with the old school death metal sound. Then there's a song called Ride the Flatline. This features Jamie Morgan and Code Orange. It was some old school death metal with different vocal styles. Overall, I would say one of the best death metal albums of the year so far. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I recommend you check this band out. They have something about their sound that makes them stand out amongst all the other death metal bands that are coming out like every week. So I recommend this band. Next album is from the band Sunbomb with Light Up the Sky. This is a band on the Frontiers Music SRL label, consisting of Michael Sweet of Stryper and Tracy Guns of LA Guns. The band plays some classic sounding heavy metal, with their main influences being Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Dio, and Judas Priest. The music is much heavier than that of their main bands. The band also has Adam Hamilton on drums, who was the former member of LA Guns. It's their second album. The album opens with Unbreakable, and the opening guitar riff was very reminiscent of early Black Sabbath. But Michael Sweet still sounds like he always does. The song has a very dark and heavy breakdown, and I thought it was a good opening track. Then there was the song Steel Hearts. The opening guitar riff reminded me of Frankenstein by the Edgar Winter Group. Then there was another song called In Grace We Find Our Name. The opening riff reminded me of some early Black Sabbath. Michael Sweet's vocals were more along the lines of Ronnie James Dio's on this song. And I'm talking about Dio in Black Sabbath. And then there was a song called Light Up the Sky, and it reminded me of another Black Sabbath song. I think it was from the Sabotage album, but I couldn't think of the name. But as you can see, there is somewhat of a pattern going on. Later on, there's a song called Scream Out Loud. This one had a faster rhythm. So I thought it was more along the lines of some of those early Dio albums, or even some modern Stryper. Then there was a song called Winds of Faith, and it was pretty good. A slower song, and I think it sounded more or less original. Didn't sound derivative of any of the other bands like the previous songs did. There was another song called Beyond the Odds, and this one had more of that new wave of British heavy metal sound. I thought of a band like Saxon. So it was a pretty cool change of pace. Towards the end of the album was a power ballad called Where We Belong. This one had acoustic guitars, reminding me of those old Ronnie James Dio power ballads, something along the lines of Don't Talk to Strangers or something like that. Overall, it's pretty good. My score is a 7.5 out of 10. I know they're not the most original band, but I think they do a good job of capturing that particular sound from this time period. The next album is from the band Anvil. This is the name of the album, or the name of the album is One and Only. It's their 20th album. This band has been around since the early 80s. Their early albums have been influential on thrash metal, and they had a documentary about them called Anvil, the story of Anvil. It came out in like the mid-2000s. I reviewed their 2022 album, Impact is Imminent. This one is very similar to that one and maybe the one before it. It's heavy metal. These guys love to play heavy music. I don't think they ever plan on changing their sound. The album opens with One and Only, and it's just a very typical of what you would expect from the band. Just some heavy metal, and they remind me a lot of Twisted Sister, even though they both came out around the same time. There was one song called Feed Your Fantasy. It was one of the singles, so I'd heard it before. I don't like that song that much because it was very repetitive, and the lyrics were pretty simple. This band has better lyrics on other songs on the album, but this was one of my least favorites. The song, Fight for Your Rights, was pretty cool. It was about the corrupt legal system, so I enjoyed that one. There was one song that sounded a little different than what I remember from this band, and it was called Heartbroken. It was a slower song where the guitar riff was similar to some classic Black Sabbath, and the lyrical content was a little more serious. Then there was a song called Golden Diamonds, and this one was about the gold rush from many years ago. It was a typical heavy metal song, so I thought it was pretty cool. There was a song called Truth is Dying, and this is about fake news and misinformation spread online. It was another pretty cool song. The music was in line with the rest of the album. There were a few songs on the album. Other than that, one of the songs that stood out in the second half was called World of Fools. This one had some heavy chugging guitar riffs. I like that one. Then another song towards the end of the album called Condemned Liberty. And it's about cancel culture. One of the slower tracks. Overall, it's an Anvil album. You're not getting anything unexpected. My score is 7 out of 10. It's still decent. I might revisit it every now and then, but these guys are just doing what they want to do, so you can't really blame them. They're just having fun at this point. The next album is from Crystal Viper, and the name of the album is The Silver Key. They are a heavy metal band from Poland. They've been active since 2003. They're a female-fronted band. They had 9 albums. The sound is a mix of heavy metal, power metal, and speed metal, with some of their main influences being early Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. The opening track is called Return to Providence, and it's an instrumental intro track. Sounds like the beginning of a science fiction movie with laser beams and things like that. The next song is called Fever of the Gods. It's a very fast-paced song with some rapid-fire drumming. To me, it sounded like a cross between power metal and traditional heavy metal. After that was a song called Old House in the Mist, and this one sounded more like classic heavy metal from either the late 70s or early 80s with some pretty cool guitar riffs. Then there was another song called The Key is Lost. I liked this one a lot. It had a slower rhythm, very big and epic sound, lots of big vocals, some interesting guitar licks. There was another song called Heading Kadath, and this one sounded more like some classic power metal, but with a little bit of an Iron Maiden influence in the guitar sound, and you can hear that influence a lot more in some of the instrumental sections in the second part of the song. After this was a song called Book of the Dead, and this one had some very fast drum beats and a lot of melody. I can probably hear the Iron Maiden influence here as well. And then another song called Silver Key. They slowed down a little bit on this one. I like to say it was more straightforward, a little more just heavy metal. They have a soft piano-based ballad called Wayfaring Dreamer, which was not too bad. And then there were 3 more songs on the album that were mixtures of power metal and heavy metal. So overall, it's an okay album. I wasn't completely blown away, but I like the style of music. It's pretty much the type of music I prefer to listen to. Just in general, it's a decent listen. Again, my score is a 7 out of 10. Let me know if you're a fan of this band or if you have listened to them in the past, and what are your thoughts on them. I have one more album, and it's from the band Drift Into Black with Voices Beneath the Rubble. I only know this band because I did a few collaboration videos with their frontman, Craig Rossi, on the Chill Dude on the Couches channel. It was a couple Is It That Bad episodes. They're from New Jersey. They've been active since 2017. It's their 5th album. They're a gothic doom band. The album starts with an intro track called Horns of Despair. This one sets the mood, creates this haunting atmosphere. Pretty cool with some female chanting style vocals and a big epic sound. After this is a song called In Turmoil. Reminds me a lot of Ghost, but from their first 2 albums. It's slower gothic music, but also melodic. Then a song called The Great Machine. I like this one a lot because it had this hard driving rhythm, some interesting percussion. Almost sounded industrial at one point. It was a cool song, but the lyrics told a story about some type of great machine. I don't know exactly what it is, but it was interesting, and I like the vocals. Somewhat more melodic and somewhat used heavier vocals. Then it was a song called Beneath the Rubble. This was some slow doom metal, maybe a little bit of black metal in the guitar playing. Thought it was pretty cool. I like their use of the additional instruments, like the violin playing. It added another element. Then Last Hope was a softer ballad with pianos and guitar chords. I thought it was good. It had some emotional lyrics about death and wars. Bloodstorm had more of a heavier sound. There were some thick guitar riffs and a hard driving rhythm. I thought the vocals on this track were very powerful. What's Left in the Fire had a very sad and depressing sound in the intro with lyrics about death and some type of apocalyptic event. The song had female vocals as well as some acoustic guitars. The song then picks up and you can hear some heavier guitars and violins and such. The song has a very big and epic sound. They close the album with another power ballad called December. Overall, I like this one a lot. I know when you listen to it, you probably think it sounds a lot like Ghost, but if you listen closely, this band has a lot more going under the surface. I think you need to give this music a little bit of time. Listen with headphones. Just take everything in. There's a lot going on in the background. My score is going to be an 8 out of 10. I'll be going back to it more often. I think this music is very dense. It's complex, but also melodic. So it's something you probably need to listen to a few times. And that is all. Check out last week's episode of new metal releases from last weekend. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. Please hit the bell for notifications so you can get updated every time I upload a video. I have videos on TikTok as well as Facebook. I do some other stuff on those platforms, so you can find those links in the video description. And I'll see you in the next one.